Hey, good morning. Hey, we're live. Good morning. It's 5 a.m. Mester Scrum. Hope you're doing well. It is actually 6:01 on my clock, so it's not quite 5 o'clock. But we've been up here and battling with my son early this morning. He took my phone. He wanted to play it while we're doing the show, and I'm like, no, you can't do that. So he's all huffy puffy. But he stole my phone, right? So he can watch TikTok. He says he wants to do a TikTok video today. I'm like, well, he can do a TikTok video. Um, Hope you're all doing well. It's Sunday. It's 6:01. This is episode 139 of the 5 a.m. Mester Scrum Show. And here we talk about Agile and Scrum in a tactical and practical sense so that hopefully give you ideas to get home to your family or friends at a decent time. And at the same time, building better product for our customers. And, having some fun along the way. Hopefully not doing too stressful. Trying a little stressful yesterday. I'll kind of talk about that a little bit, and two of the things we talked about yesterday, and some other things that happen over time. So I want to talk a little bit about the SAFe and the PI planning and how to handle risks, dependencies that we talked about yesterday, and then I want to talk about something that no one picked up on comments wise or anything like that, and maybe it's interesting, and then just talk about some of the stuff from yesterday's show. So real quick, yesterday's show. So I mentioned yesterday I had a lot of things. I think I messaged out on LinkedIn or a couple of things where trying to get stuff done, and I credited the prioritization and doing MVP, which is kind of true because I talked about yesterday about going to my nephew's thing on ice, which is called curling, by the way. Realized what it was. It was called curling after the show because it was a live show. My brain just didn't work at 5 a.m. in the morning. So yesterday was hockey, curling, trains, and then I did a coaching session, which was pretty interesting. Someone actually took me up on my free coaching sessions, so that's still out there. I haven't really promoted it yet. For anybody's out there, there was a couple people overseas. I offered, there's one that I offered 5 opportunities overseas, coach, and then a couple here in the States. And overseas can be anywhere. So it was really, technology is amazing, and I'm going off on a tangent right now. I'm just giving you a warning. It's like coaching and talking to somebody, and this person's in New Zealand, and I had to make sure I got permission to give his name out, so I won't get that for now. Just like in my coaching agreement, get permission. So he's in New Zealand. So it's kind of interesting. We had this conversation via technology between myself and someone in New Zealand. So it's a long ways changed since I first got out of college and first had internet back in the 90s for what it is today. And it's pretty amazing that the tech is there, just watching stuff coming out. And I think, I'll be honest with you, I think the Scrum and Agile stuff and how you get stuff done and get ideas and get feedback and the quick loops and all that is getting there because we have old school, but will revolutionize, and I see it revolutionizing tech stuff that's coming out now that is amazingly different. Just watching Google Maps, how Google can calculate all the directions and all that information it gets into its system. I don't think it could have done that in the old school. Planning all that out, figuring all that, having the perfect solution. I don't think Google Maps would actually have worked if we did it that way. I don't think they'd ever made it product at all. But that's just me. Maybe I'm just biased in that. Maybe someone from Google, well, we didn't use Agile at all. And I'll probably ask them, well, that sounds kind of Agile. I bet you it's pretty darn Agile. So I'm off on my tangent. So my thing, what happened yesterday. So I talked about it. We always talk about don't overcommitting. So I had a couple things I wanted to do. I did not commit until the last minute, but I tried planning it out and doing a little MVP. What can I do? I knew I wanted to go see my nephew do the curling because one we haven't seen. I want to take my kids there. So I had that. And then wanted to do the trains. Didn't have much time. I knew I was going to have much time to do that, but we did it. And then I want to make sure I'm back in time at 6 o'clock for the coaching session. And we had hockey in the morning. It was a full day. And one of the first things I did, just like sprint planning, how much time do I need? When are the events? Lay that out for the day, plan my day, found out what my windows were, what were the opportunities. It lucked out that curling was like at 1:15 in the afternoon, so we got there about 1:30. Got to see him do that for about 2 hours, right? That was a long session. I think we left around 3 o'clock, and then got home just in time, with enough time, just no rest. Um, the nice thing, all my trains are in a box, all ready to go, so I can set this thing up in less than 15, 20 minutes, and then lay it out to wherever it is. The biggest time is trying to figure out which ground is the most level. And took it over in a little red wagon. There's pictures of it on the internet, and set up. Spent about a half hour, 45 minutes with the kids. It was getting dark anyhow. So you know what? From an MVP, did I need to be out there for 2 hours and be out there long? No, the kids couldn't see. It was getting too dark anyhow. But there were kids out there that enjoyed the activity, which really was cool. I mean, they're like looking at it, and had Thomas going around, had little caboose. I put Bart Simpson in there. I had to bring Bart out. I'll show you Bart. But you hide things. It's fun. We do fun things with the trains. We hide little characters, and you got to find them. And so did that, and then I came back in time. I cut it early. I'm like, asked my wife, "Do you want to do it now?" It's like, okay. So I broke it down and just took it all home. But their kids had fun, right? It was an MVP where minimum viable product was, I had a track. It was a simple circle track. Got the train going, put a couple of things out there. Just the little kids are like, oh, that is so cool, and you could just see it in their faces. So for me, it was an MVP. It was fine. I didn't have to do elaborate. My one buddy, why didn't you tell me? He's like, yeah, it was last minute kind of thing. I wasn't sure if we're gonna do it. And he's like, yeah, I would have done it too. I'm like, yeah, it wasn't a big rollout. But if we plan better and have less things in the schedule, get it done. So, but that's how I did it. I planned it out, figured out how much time it was, when things were going to happen, and did some sprint planning for the day on what possibilities out there. And if I made those points, then I added it to the activities. So, and there were other things that I wanted to do on the way that fell off, that were like, if you're in safe, you have stretch goals. If we had time, we do this, but I didn't realize that the just like doing coding, that the curling would be 2 hours long. I thought we'd be there for an hour, and so I lost an hour, but that's fine. I'd rather be there with my nephews and check things out. It was pretty cool. So that's what I want to talk about. That's how you do things and getting stuff done. It was a little hectic, and I know it made it a little stressful, but it was fun. You saw the pictures. Kids had a good time. It was good seeing them, and then relating with family and friends, which is what we do here at 5am Mester Scrum. Try to find ways to organize so that you can do stuff, not go crazy, not stress out. Every once in a while, there'll be a spike of stress, but hopefully relax. And if it works out, then everything will be great. So that's what was all yesterday. So that was one of the topics. Just planning, figuring out your time scale, doing a little MVP, cutting it down a little bit so it's not the full thing. Like we talked about the Google Maps and everything. I cut the train down from multiple trains running. My boy was like, yeah, we'll just run one train, Dad, and we'll just run the one and it'll be fine. So we just picked Thomas because there'll be little kids there and they all know who Thomas is. So we ran that, pulled that down. So we just minimized and took off requirements, right? Took off stories, took off points off of what we needed to do. And we negotiated. We thought about it. Said, yeah, this will work. It doesn't have to be the whole thing, right? So it worked out great. So anyway, so that's what I'm talking about with that. And just telling you can take things off the plate and still give a good product for people to have fun and enjoy it and get feedback on what worked and what didn't. So the other topic I want to talk about is like safe. And I mentioned yesterday about, and I got the whiteboard out, um, dependencies and how these dependencies on the teams are really risks. And I thought about it and I wanted to sketch out kind of what I was visualizing how to handle that. I actually did this for my boss the other day too. So, and I've done this before, managing projects for many years. So let's say you have two teams. I'm gonna make it simple. You have team one. I got my whiteboard out, by the way. Team two, and this is episode 139. for the podcast people. So I gotta talk as I write on the whiteboard. One of the things you learn about this, and I try to listen to the show in different formats every once in a while. And I listen to podcasts. I'm like, yeah, no one would ever know what I was writing if I didn't like describe it to them in the podcast world. So I have team 1 and team 2. Team 1's above. And let's say I have a feature. And the feature is just long, and this is time. I'm drawing some vertical bars with time. And I'm just going to say that there's sprint 1 in the beginning, sprint 2, sprint 3, and there's a sprint 4. And I drew this feature number 1, which kind of like overlaps between sprint 1, 2, and 3. Okay. And then on team 2, I have another feature, pretty much maybe the same feature, maybe the same time frame. I'm just for grins, I'm just going to shift it out 1 sprint. So sprint feature 2 on team 2 starts in sprint 2, 3, and 4. Okay. So, and we decided PI planning that this feature has some kind of relationship to feature 2. So T1's feature 1, which is in sprint 1, 2, and 3, has a relationship or needs something to supply for the other team's feature 2, which is in sprint 2, 3, and 4. Now, you could just do a link there and say, hey, they're related. But from a risk project management, dependency analysis, it's really not enough information. And a lot of teams, a lot of organizations, when they first start, they do this. And just over my ears, it's like, no, you can't do that. And you really need to go level deeper. So there's definitely some stories. So there's a bunch of stories. I'm going to draw some little squares in the features and the sprints. Maybe there's some stories. And I just draw them as little squares on the board. Maybe I'll take a picture of this, post of that post show. And in there's different stories of different sprints that you're working. Let's say this story here that I'm boxing out, I wish I had a different color. I used to. Here we go. Actually, I see a red one. I see a red. Let's see if red works. So yeah, we got red. Let's clear that up. So I draw this little red story here. That's the dependency story on feature 1. Okay. What I want to know from team 1 is what story you're going to work on. And I'm just doing this graphic. So let's say they're going to work on a story in sprint 1. And this story feeds that story in sprint 2 for the other, or sprint 3 for the other team. So I have my dependent stories in sprint 3. This team 1 is going to work on the story in sprint 1, and it's going to feed there. Okay. Now, what I would do is I would extend this feature timeline for my team, and I will put a little story in here, a spike. You know, my spikes, I love spikes, right? Spike story. And this story would be a relationship story with somebody here. So I would assign somebody from my technical team this story. And their job is to do spikes between whatever code they're developing in this other team and make sure they can pick up the results and it's the right format in our team. So I make a little 1-point spike, and either it could be in any, maybe it's closer, but I would put a little 1-point spike, and this group meets with this group, or these people, make sure whatever data is coming out of here into our group works, or at least gets an idea. Not trying to take the data and make something from it. Just a simple spike. Like if you have an API or some kind of call routines or whatever, could be data forming, could be database stuff, that they just make sure that whatever data is coming out of here matches what we talked about. And the nice thing about that, if it doesn't work, you have another sprint to make another spike. to check any changes that may come about, right? So you can add a little 1-point spike in there so that when your team is getting ready to do a full coding, where they take all that data and when it complete and build the final product that they want in the sprint, that they did a couple spikes, a couple sprints ahead to do that. And that would be just my suggestion on how to handle that when you have the dependency. Put a little 1-point spike story matching whatever this story starts with, right? So if they're doing work that you're going to take in the future, put a little 1-point spike story in there and map it out. Make sure it's working. Get the data interfaces running, the data going through the firewalls, whatever you got to do. Put that little 1 point. And it's not a finished product again. It's just, I saw it. I can read the data. The data is the right format and everything's working the way I want it to work. And trust me, this will help you in the long term. You don't want to be doing this during your sprint because you won't get there. And you don't have any time to give feedback to the other team to fix their stuff. But you can put one person on here and they can just spend the day and kind of go through that. So that's just kind of what I wanted to talk about from a PI planning standpoint, from a dependency. Maybe we'll hit this again on PI planning, where I believe you put some stories in the sprint, not just, but you have to map what story is dependent upon the other one and put that during your PI planning. So, but that gets the PI planning to the next level where it should be for your risk planning and mitigation for success, right? So with that, it's 16:35 into the show. I know I talked a little earlier and I was just drawing on a whiteboard and then I get off topic. So I want to let you all go. I wanted to say, I hope your weekend's going well. Hope you're having fun with your family and friends. Free up some time. Try to prioritize, figure out what's MVP with what you're doing in personal. Again, this is what I was talking about yesterday, was applying Scrum and Agile techniques to personal life. So we kind of mix it up a little bit and getting everything done. So with that, take care. Thumbs up. Ring the little bell. Eddie's not here because he's huffing and puffing because I kicked him out because he was trying to play the phone when we were going to do the show. And now he's all huffy puffy. Anyway, you all have fun. Enjoy your day. Happy scrumming. And see you on Monday. Bye. See ya.